Donald Trump has just been kicked off the ballot in Colorado. The Colorado Supreme Court ruled that Donald Trump engaged in an insurrection against the United States on January 6th, and under the 14th Amendment, he's constitutionally prohibited from holding office. Therefore, Donald Trump's name will not appear on the ballot of the Republican primary in Colorado, and therefore not appear on the ballot in the general election in Colorado. That is, unless the U.S. Supreme Court takes the case. Donald Trump will be appealing the ruling, and the Supreme Court has until January 4th to announce if it will take it. We expect the Supreme Court to hear it before this Colorado thing sets a precedent and affects Trump's ballot access in other states. The Colorado lawsuit was filed by a Soros-funded outlet, decided by an all-Democrat-appointed Supreme Court, and the Democrat Colorado Secretary of State, within a split second, was celebrating on MSNBC.
Look, I believe he incited the insurrection. There were big questions around Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, and the Colorado Supreme Court has weighed in a very loud way. Section 3 of the 14th Amendment has to apply to the presidency because if not, it's a get-out-of-jail-free card.
The Trump campaign responded to the lawsuit just now saying, quote, Democrat Party leaders are in a state of paranoia over the growing dominant lead President Trump has amassed in the polls. They have lost faith in the failed Biden presidency and are now doing everything they can to stop the American voters from throwing them out of office next November. We have full confidence that the U.S. Supreme Court will quickly rule in our favor and finally put an end to these un-American lawsuits. Remember, Biden won Colorado by nearly 14 points. This was never about Colorado's ballot access. This was about having a targeted lawsuit aimed at setting a precedent to knock Trump off dozens of state ballots and disqualify him by any means necessary from the presidency, therefore denying the people their right to vote. Charlie Hurt joins me now. So we expect the Supreme Court to take the case, and what do you think is going to happen, Charlie?
I think without a doubt they have no choice but to take up this case because, and I think you're exactly right about this, they're trying to set a precedent. This will open the floodgates. You'll have left-wing lunatic states all around the country trying to do the exact same thing, and you're exactly right there. This has very little to do with ballot access in the general election. It has to do with barring Donald Trump from getting the Republican nomination. And I thought his statement was really interesting where he said Democrat leaders have lost faith in Joe Biden. That's true, but Democrat leaders have also lost faith in democracy, and that's what we're seeing in Colorado today. The Democrats in Colorado are so afraid of allowing American voters to vote and pick the next president, they are willing to do extrajudicial things, complete highway robbery here, in order to thwart the people's choice from being on the ballot. To them, preserving democracy requires destroying democracy, and that's who we're dealing with. These people are unhinged, they're lunatics, and they're very dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, it's more than voter suppression. It's more than voter intimidation. It's the elimination of the voter. You can't vote for the guy you want to. It's as simple as that, and it's because the court ruled, in their opinion, he's an insurrectionist. He's not been charged with insurrection. He's not been convicted of insurrection. It's just their opinion that that's what happened.
Yeah, no, and that's such an important point. We hear the word insurrection thrown around all over the place. Everybody wants to sort of hide behind that. But literally, Jack Smith, who would charge Donald Trump with absolutely everything, including jaywalking if he could get away with it, didn't even charge Donald Trump or most of the rioters on January 6th with insurrection. And by the way, another thing that I think is kind of an interesting point here is that Donald Trump faced the trial that a president faces in the United States Senate over the January 6th riots. He was charged with impeachable offenses, and he was found not guilty there. And that's obviously not the same as a court of law, but that is a very significant factor in determining whether or not this guy committed insurrection or whatever. But the other thing I think is also interesting is that these people are so determined to thwart democracy and to prevent people from voting for who they want to vote for, that to them, January 6th was the Civil War to them. There is no difference between that and a 4-year horrifying, the deadliest war in our history. To them, it's the same thing. If it meets their political objective, they don't care.
Do you have faith in the Roberts Court? Remember, last time they didn't even take his appeal on the 2000 election. They just didn't even take it.
Yeah, I actually do, because I think that this court, if I were to define the Roberts Court, it is that they don't want courts determining everything. They believe, and if you look back at the Obamacare ruling, what was the court's ruling? The ruling was, Congress, you built this monster, you deal with it. And they kicked it back to Congress. And there's a lot of criticism about that decision. And I agree with that criticism. But the main thrust of it is that they don't want the courts running the country. They want legislatures to run the country. And we saw that with the Dobbs decision as well. And I think that if that's your mindset here, then you have to look at this crazy lunatic court in Colorado and say, we're not going to let these people deny Americans the right to vote for who they want to vote for in the next election.
Charlie, you know it'd be nice if we could just have an election where no one interfered. Not the Chinese, not the Russians, not the FBI, not the CIA, not some wacko judge in Colorado. Just let the people vote like we've always done, and it shakes out how it shakes out. Is that too much to ask?
Yeah, that would actually be really nice if we'd have an election where the CIA and the FBI doesn't take Kremlin talking points and run with them to rig our election. I would love that.
Yeah, just a nice, normal, clean election.
Let the chips fall where they may.
Right. Thanks, Charlie.